Good morning, everyone. It's been a week and a half here. Blaine, Bartlett.
Hey, buddy.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to see you today.
Thank you for waking up early as always. And we have a special guest. Sometimes I bring a guest on because I just want to learn, and it's so much less expensive to bring on an extreme consultant to help me with what I need by just putting them on this show instead of like having her fly out here, spend millions of dollars for advice. So Meredith Bell, co-founder and president of Performance Support Systems, and she has two books. One, Connect with Your Team, as you know, is probably one of the most important things for me in my business. And then Peer Coaching Made Simple. And I have instituted over the last 2 decades a peer coaching system within the companies that I run, advise for, et cetera. It's one of the most beneficial things. And I think within that, Meredith, people will comment when they come into my office pre-COVID or when they're around my team at some of these now allowed shows. And they'll say, I love the energy of your team as a collective. And to me, that's the greatest compliment as a leader that I can receive. I don't care about my top line, bottom line as much as I care about that people are attracted to the energy of my team. Mm-hmm. How important is the energy within the context of connecting with the team in this peer-to-peer type of mentoring and coaching?
Well, you just nailed it, David. It's critical because if people don't feel that, connection and of course the underlying foundation is trust. Do I feel that you have my best interest at heart, and can I count on you to back me, to help me when I need it? And I think that's really the key. I'm so thrilled to hear about the way you've implemented peer coaching throughout, because most organizations haven't. And, a lot of them don't even understand what that is. And if we could just spend a few minutes talking about what does that really look like? I'd love to hear if this is modeling what you are actually doing in your businesses, because one of the things that's so important, a lot of companies hire executive coaches for top leadership, but they can't bring in a coach.
Thank God, by the way, or Blaine and I would be broke.
Good point.
Well, the thing is, they can't bring in a coach for every individual in the company, even though everyone needs coaching. And part of the issue, of course, is what does that look like? What does it mean? Too often, we've been hearing managers push back saying, I don't want to take on one more role. Mm-hmm. And they don't really understand coaching is a part of who they need to be in their work with other people. It's not an additional thing to add to their plate. It is all over their plate, if you will. Yeah. And so similarly with peers, people who are coworkers, if they can understand this is really valuable for our development. And, millennials today really want that ongoing development. Well, this is a way to accomplish that because they are learning how to use these important interpersonal skills when they're doing peer coaching, right? They're listening, they're giving feedback, they're holding them accountable. And so this kind of effort where people commit to each other, I'm in it for you, I am here to help you, as opposed to I've got this checklist, right? And have you done this? Have you done that? It's not that kind of accountability. In fact, I love one of the definitions I heard one time was you can count on me in terms of accountability. And so knowing you can count on someone else gives you this extra energy, going back to what you started with. The energy that people feel when they are supported, when they know others are looking out for them, is huge, what it does to the overall energy of the group.
Meredith, I had you on my podcast a little bit ago, Soul of Business with Blaine Bartlett. And one of the things I mentioned was that, and we agreed on this, and you were a wonderful guest. Yeah, folks, you got to go back and review that particular episode. Meredith just was a star. But I mentioned on that every organization is basically a collection of people that are in relationship. And if the relationships are working well, you got a pretty good shot at being successful. And where this peer coaching thing comes in, it has to do with a shift in mindset from the leadership mindset perspective, in the sense of not using people as mechanisms to get a result. But my role as a leader is to develop people so that they can be the best that they can be. And as a consequence of that, I'm going to get my result. I mean, that's the whole
Yes.
idea. And it's what comes first, the cart or the horse. And if leaders and managers are getting it clear that their role is to actually develop the people in their organization, that begins to move mountains. And then, you introduced me to Gary Ridge over at WD-40. And I love Gary. And what Gary's done there with his organization is predicated just on that notion. Now, you've got the 2 books, and you've also got a field book that I think is just a fascinating way to approach how you implement this. Because to Dave's point, getting it down into the organization, and to your point specifically, not everybody can afford, a coach for everybody. But if you've got peer coaching going on, I'd like you to talk a little bit about your field book, because I think it is a wonderful way to position how this can get done effectively, economically, and ultimately with some pretty significant results on the backside of it.
You're talking about the facilitator guide that we
Facilitator guide,
created.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what we did, too often people buy books for others and they might read it, but head knowledge doesn't translate into behavior change and
Mhm.
improve performance. And so we got to thinking with these 2 books that we had created, there's powerful information in there. How can we bring it to life for others? So
Mhm.
this facilitator guide really talks about how to have people identify a specific skill they want to improve, whether it's listening, giving or receiving feedback, and then working with a peer coach. And it's not complicated. They don't have to be certified. It's a very simple process for setting up a time to get together and then addressing how did you do this past week when you were, or whatever frequency it is between their 2 sessions. How did you do? What problems did you encounter that I might be able to help you with? And listening for that, and just getting someone to explore. The beauty of this is that it helps people develop into individual leaders themselves and prepares them for a leadership role later on. Because one of the key things that makes peer coaching easier is you don't have to feel like you've got the answers. You're one of the key things you're doing is asking questions to help people discover for themselves. And so we've created this facilitator guide because there does need to be someone, either internal or external, with the organization that's kind of moving this along, that cares enough to champion this process and says, okay, people aren't going to just automatically organize themselves into peer coaches. There needs to be a structure. And so that's what we've prepared for them.
Yeah.
And Meredith, I know you talk about this in your Grow Strong Leaders podcast a lot. You've done over 100 episodes, and there's 2 non-intended benefits that I found over the last 2 decades from utilizing this methodology. One is extremely valuable today, and it's something called creativity. What happens is the inspiration of creativity through the peer-to-peer. And then 2, the really non-intentional one is the scalability of a business when you have peer-to-peer mechanism. What I found is, I create a system where you shadow someone at first in this peer-to-peer mentoring, you work with them in the peer-to-peer mentoring, and then you supervise them in the peer-to-peer, and then they're prepared to mentor someone else with their own personality, frequency, ideas, and creativity. What have you found in the years in the matter of how it inspires creativity? I will tell you, and there's 2 things you said before I get to the question, because it just cracks me up. I know I feel so guilty as an executive coach because sometimes I don't have the answer. And I usually say I don't have the answer, but I'll find it for you. But every once in a while, I need to have an answer for credibility. So I'll just go right to the emotional, safe coaching comment of, you know what the problem is? You don't feel worthy. And it's the best executive comment ever, because no executive feels worthy. And then you'll get them to cry and tell you what a genius you are. And how did you know I didn't feel worthy? Because none of us do. And I always share my super secret sauces of coaching. But on the other side too, how many times have you and Blaine and I helped somebody and gave them advice or mentoring or peer-to-peer mentoring and said, God, that's a great idea. I should really do that as well.
Yeah.
So
Take
that's
my
where the
advice. I'm
super,
not using it. Yeah.
that's where the super
Oh,
creativity,
yes.
right? So
Yeah.
creativity and scalability. I know you talk about it on your podcast. These are two unintentional things that happen. I was hoping you could explain why, because you are such an expert in this space.
If I could add another C word that I think ties in with this so well, and that's curiosity.
Mhm.
And the example you just gave is such a good one, because if we can remember that we are being curious and ask questions rather than feel that pressure of, I better come up with the answer here. And that's, we have 3 different chapters in our book around asking questions to help people learn to think for themselves so they are not feeling dependent on you. And so one of the ways thinking about creativity, curiosity, scalability is if we can learn to ask questions that get people to become more independent, more resourceful themselves, that allows us to scale because we're not spending so much time in the minutia of answering all these questions. We create dependency when we do that. And I want to share a powerful question. And Blaine, we didn't talk about this, I don't think, on my interview with you, but it is one of the most powerful questions I've ever learned to ask myself. And I think it'll be helpful for you in your coaching situations. How can I serve this person so powerfully that they never forget our conversation for the rest of their life? And that comes from Rich Litvin in The Prosperous Coach. And when I read that sentence, that was like, oh my gosh, because I've always been about serving others, but this was like challenging me to a whole different level. And so if we can have that in our minds, then we realize that serving someone that powerfully that they never forget it is not about talking about us.
Right.
It's about drawing out from them something they didn't even realize was there.
Yeah. I
And
love that.
so that is such a key to being a powerful coach, being a powerful peer coach and it takes the pressure off you. And that's where the creativity can come in. When I don't feel the pressure to have the answers, then I can relax into just being fully with you and listening for what's important, what's not said that could then be valuable to help you discover an insight that'll make a huge difference for you.
That whole notion of curiosity, I've been asked numerous times in my career, what's the most powerful thing a coach needs to have if they're going to be successful? And my answer has always been curiosity. The idea of questions, and I'm glad you raised Rich's name. I've known Rich for years, and the idea of questions. Most people aren't practiced at asking high quality questions. They default to just usually omnidirectional questions. Why is that true for you? Why doesn't give me any direction at all? It's just kind of like whatever shows up. In some of the training programs I do, I will actually give an assignment to an executive and say, I'd like you to come back tomorrow with a list of 10 questions you've never thought of asking your people or your organization. And then let's explore those questions with your team. And it's kind of like, well, what do you mean I've never asked? I mean, literally that, questions you have never thought of asking before that serve where you and they would like to go. And it just stops them cold because people aren't used to thinking about high quality questions. And questions serve two purposes as far as I can tell. And we talked about this a bit. Number one, they will point direction. They will point direction. The kind of question you ask determines what direction people go looking for the answer. And then the other one is the most obvious one, which is just general information, but I want specific information that can be used to move things forward. And I love that question.
Blaine,
about
not to interrupt, not to interrupt, but I've got guys in the green room, and I just want to make a comment before we let Meredith go.
Great.
When you talk about high quality questions, I think it's more distinguishing purposeful questions. They're all high quality, but do they serve the purpose that you want? Meaning, is it a closed-ended or an open-ended question that serves the purpose of leading someone somewhere through their own empowerment and ideas? Or is it a soul searching question, of an open-ended question where I can learn more about either how I could be of service or they could be of service to me. And I think that's an important distinguishment of how we determine a high quality question, or is that purpose behind it, which is ironically something that Blaine taught me, which is great. I'm transcoding the wisdom of my mentor, Blaine Bartlett, who sat here. Meredith, we'll have to have you back on. Obviously, we have other shows. Extraordinary, especially today, with retention, with the great resignation, with recruitment, I think are three of the critical business issues, and will continue to be, because of so many entrepreneurs that were in the last 2 years entering the workspace that now will face the statistics of 90% of all startups will fail. Now they'll be faced with entrepreneurship, employment, and other things of being back onto a team. So these two books are critical for everyone out there. Connect with your team and peer coaching made simple. Please reach out to Meredith Bell, growstrongleaders.com. She has a Grow Strong Leaders podcast. I apologize for keeping us on pace, but we will have you back. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's great talking to you both.
Thank
Meredith,
you.
love seeing you again.
Awesome. I could have stayed with her all day. Sorry for interrupting you. I you know me. I gotta be the producer and the executor of intelligence. All right, here we go.
The problem.
It's fun. People are so understanding and kind. That's what makes this show so great, right? Especially you, Blaine. Especially you. Justin Futrell. He's here. Look at him. Oh, wait. He's now my favorite. Why is Justin my favorite, Matt? Why is he's my favorite person now? That's right. OHIO, the Buckeye himself. He is the benefits at TrueNorth advisor. He's the founder of Pull-Ups for Tanzania. Blaine and I do so much for and with Africa. I'd love to, understand how your profession has driven you to be the pull-up guy.
Yeah, that's a nice little what's that word? Career path. Let's see how this works.
Well, Ohio State's pulled their way up with Oregon, so this is an all-winning crew here.
Hey, Oregon, go Ducks!
That's right. The only team to beat the Buckeyes, Oregon, right there. That's them, but they're third and we're fourth, so we're all in the playoffs. This is good.
There we go. Well, welcome. Good morning. Let's execute some intelligence on me here, huh?
Yes.
Okay. So background, benefits advisor, passionate about helping people when it comes to healthcare strategy, and my focus of working with companies, 100 to 1,000 employees. I'll give you an idea. For 500 employees in a company's paying out $5 million in claims. And that's a big price tag. And so my passion is figuring out how we can be more strategic, give less money to hospitals, insurance companies, and pharmaceuticals, keep more money in people's pocket. I want to help grow the workforce. So that's professionally. And then personally, studying abroad in Tanzania in 2016, I got passionate about clean water. As you guys know, seeing it firsthand takes you to a whole nother level of impact.
Yeah.
And and so in 2017, I did my first fundraiser and actually did 1,000 pull-ups in one day. And that was the fundraiser to raise 25 grand. And it worked because people said, "This is crazy. You're nuts. Here's some money."
Yep.
And so now,
that's what I feel about Bezos and Elon Musk. Like, you guys are crazy. Here's some money. You must know something. Yeah. I don't.
Yeah, do your crazy stuff with it. So it's snowball effect, Blaine and David, and it's so cool. So we've grown every year. And now it's not just about me, it's about thousands of people doing pull-ups. So starting tomorrow through Sunday, we're doing 75,000 pull-ups across the country. 75,000 pull-ups to raise awareness for clean water.
That is amazing. And how do people donate? So I know you raised 25,000 on 1,000. Were people, giving a certain amount per pull-up, or a flat rate donation, or all the above?
All the above. Whatever people want to give. My tagline that I tell people is every $6 makes a difference. Just $6 impacts one person's life for years. And so Some people do pull-ups. Some people give money. We do 75,000 pull-ups. We raise $75,000.
All right.
That's the pull-up thing.
Why do you limit yourself to $75,000?
Let's do $10 a pull up.
Let's go over. Start saying we raise over $75,000, and when you get to $75,000, I'll make that come true, because I'll write a check to put you over $75,000.
Deal.
All right. So then you can tell people we raised over 75,000 or maybe over 100,000. Who knows? When people are crazy, one thing about them, they don't limit themselves.
Right.
So I like as a criteria to invest in crazy, because the last thing I want to invest in is limitation.
Right.
Someone that doesn't have the curiosity, creativity, the scalability, the dream that can be manifested and materialized for other people's benefit, like you're doing in Tanzania.
Yeah.
Blaine, I can see you. I've cut you off enough this morning. What do you got for me?
No,
Don't sing the duck song to him, though.
Don't get me started on the ducks. I'll do a little quack attack here.
Quack attack.
The idea, I mean, yeah, I do a whole lot of work in the healthcare space, Justin, and where you're really focused, I think, makes a huge difference. And I'm just curious. Number one, is there something personal about why that space is so important to you, and then and if there is or isn't, how have you managed to leverage that most effectively?
Professionally, I fell into it. I fell into the insurance broker space and then realized it's really cool to help educate leadership teams, people who are excellent at what they do, but help them understand that there is a better way. There is hope in this very complex, convoluted black box that we put healthcare in. And I didn't have a reason to get into it to start with, Blaine, but I'll tell you, 2 years in, I got a phone call at 8:00 at night from my first client, a group of one. I now work with 100 to 1,000 employees. And this group of one was a business owner of Firehouse Subs. And he called me and he said, "Hey, Justin, I had a heart attack. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Can you help me?" And I thought, wow, if I'm getting this phone call and he trusts me, this is a pretty special thing that we're doing right now.
Wow. Yeah, that's kind of what I was looking for here. The element of trust comes into play, and I'm going to leverage that and go back to Tanzania.
Okay.
David and I both are on the board of directors of the Unstoppable Foundation, and we do a lot of work in Kenya, a little bit in Tanzania, but a lot of work. We've got about 500,000 people that are affected and impacted annually by the foundation's work. Yeah, bringing in clean water is not as simple as most people think, because if you dig a well, you're subject to groundwater contamination. So, boreholes are expensive and they're deep, but the water is clean. What goes on with you such that the water focus became so crucial? And I asked that because when David, one of the last trips that David and I were on into Kenya, Warren Moon was with us, and we were talking about if you had a choice, would you bring in clean water or would you bring in education? And it was interesting, just kind of the responses that question actually sparked. So I guess that's where I'm going with the question to you is, what's so important to you about water? I mean, I know we need water for life, but what was the personal link there for you? Because I think that's important to understand.
Yeah. So we studied economic development in rural Africa. That was the class. So it was an econ class. It was nice to come in, not with like the missionary focus, but from the business mindset and the impact mindset. And we had these 4 quadrants: healthcare, education, economic development, and water. And what we learned, Blaine, was education is great, but realistically, kids aren't going to be in schools if they have to walk 2 hours to get water, if they don't have time to finish their homework. So water is before education. And with healthcare, it's a toss-up, but it's not a toss-up. Is what we started with the toss-up, and then we realized, well, half the medical problems are related to not having access to clean water. And so to us, water is the foundation of a pyramid. We could argue where education and healthcare, which one's next, but ultimately water, healthcare, education, and then economic development at the very top.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I was there in Kenya for that question with my business partner, Warren. And I looked at him and I said, what a trick question. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, of course you would choose water or healthcare, most likely water, because that is the key to health. We have four things we need: nutrition, water, air, and sleep. Um, and from there, though, education's inherent within implementing the boreholes, right? So
Mhm.
the education process can be overlapped to whatever you prioritize. Education isn't its own specific category. Education is being more interested than interesting. Education is empowering and elevating. That's why you were in Tanzania, is people were educating you by allowing you to participate in providing healthcare and water and economic impact or whatever it is. So I giggled at the question when it was said the first time, because it's a trick question, and nobody thinks of answering it with both. Last question now. You played college football at
Mhm.
my favorite college football team. Ohio
No,
State.
not in
Oh,
Ohio State.
oh,
Hey,
no,
I'm not offended, but go ahead.
that's
Continue
all
with the
right.
question.
So you play college football like I then. You played at a small school and loved
Yeah,
Ohio State.
right.
That's the advantage of playing for a college that nobody plays, is you
Yeah.
can root for whoever you want. I could be a Ducks fan. I will tell you this about the Ducks before I ask my question. My favorite quarterbacks all went to Oregon.
Yep.
And so Dan Fouts,
Mariota.
Justin Herbert, two two of the best, as you'll see the end stones. But I always say that the blend of business and philanthropy,
This is
my
what I
pers-
want to really
yeah,
ask you.
yeah, that playing college football especially changed my life more than anything else. So what impact did that experience have for you? You were never going to go to the NFL, but what impact did that college experience have on your perspective of helping others, making money, and having fun?
Work ethic.
Yeah.
Far and above. And so that's where like the passion, the craziness, like I'm just gonna go for it, right? If I have a goal and we set a goal, just like in football, I'm gonna go for it and work my butt off until we hit it. And so when like David, this started a month ago when I asked you, I said, hey, I'm created a new mission statement, and that's it. Be on a quest to impact millions of lives, personally through clean water initiatives and professionally as a benefits advisor. And I've said it for a year now, but I haven't figured out how to bridge the gap yet. How do I do a better job at connecting my passions?
Yeah, and just real quick, because I'll let Blaine comment on this too, because we love questions. I think if you look within, regardless of what you want to bridge outside of you, if you look at your skills, your knowledge, and your desire, and how they're synergistic, supplementary, or aligned with, or can be applied to each of the individual aspects that seem or perceive to be separate, but they're not.
Mm,
And when we look within, we start realizing there's no separation between us and anything else and anything else and anything else. And so I always start with the fact that you have extraordinary, Justin, skills, knowledge, and desire. Apply them to the individual aspects that you're interested in and allow them to show or allow the awareness of how we're all connected and everything's connected to go ahead and appear, instead of trying to go do something that's already done.
Yeah. Yeah. The idea, one of my favorite philosophers, a fellow by the name of Neville Goddard. Yeah. In one of his lectures, he said, what should be done between the assumption of the wish fulfilled, and the key word here is the assumption. I mean, I live it, speak it, feel it, smell it, taste it inside. I mean, the assumption that it's already happened, I just haven't arrived. What should be done between the assumption of the wish fulfilled and its realization? And he had a one-word answer to that question: nothing. I can do nothing. Once the seed is planted, it's going to germinate and grow. It's in the predication here, and it really is predicated on this, is the assumption lives inside me. I plant the seed inside me. I nurture that on a daily basis. I nurture that every single breathing moment. It lives inside me, and it can't not be manifest. And then I just go about doing what I'm doing. I do what I do. I do the do, but I don't focus on, okay, I need to push the river here. I need to go in that direction. I need to make that connect. What needs to appear will appear, and it just is going to be in the flow of the state of what you're doing. You're making that difference right now. You can't not be making that difference once you've assimilated and really locked that feeling in, and then you work from there. Yeah, but what do I consciously, egoistically do? Nothing. I don't do anything. Spirit will move to and through me, and then the wish is fulfilled. It's already happened. You just haven't arrived.
Doing nothing and doing the do is doing the Tao. And so let's do the Tao now.
The Tao.
Justin Futrell, thank you so much for all that you do, and all, especially as I meet more and more young executives like yourself. It just inspires me how blessed we are and how bright our future is. Because a lot of times we get to focus in on the how can I say this in a positive manner, into things that may not enlighten us in social media. And what I find is the majority of young people are completely aligned with you, and the seeds have been planted for a very bright future. We want to thank you, and if there's anything we can do to support
absolutely
the pull-ups, let us know. Everybody, where can they go to donate? I got TanzaniaWaterFund.net. Anywhere else?
Venmo, Tanzania Water Fund.
There you go. Okay. Send the money, as they say. Show me the money. Water is a necessity. Thank you, Justin, for joining us on Office Hours.
Blaine, David, thank you.
You bet, Dick.
Appreciate it.
Take care, Justin.
All right. Last but not least, the cleanup hitter of the day, my dear friend, the supercaster himself, Shawn Anthony, host of Schools Over ... Now What. He also has the Now What Academy. He is the head mentor there. SchoolsOverNowWhat.com. And you're one of the first podcasts I think that I met personally. These guys came to my house on a Friday night. We had dinner together. He still says that Julie has the best chicken he's ever tasted.
Nice.
Which puts him in a unique group. Let's just put it that way, to not compliment my wife. But anyway, you've been in the game a long time, and there's a lot of subtleties of successes. We're over 2 million podcasts, and everybody wonders how to get a top podcast and to build a community and an audience. And I've been blessed to do so because of people like you. And now you've come out with the podcast secrets revealed to help people. And what are some of those secrets that people can learn in this book that you've learned over all these years?
Man, first off, man, shout out to you. I think you're one of the first people I've met in person that actually like you had a bigger personality than I imagined, and you actually met it. Like so many times you meet people in person, you're like, I hope they're as cool as they are online, but you actually exceeded that, man. Yeah. So shout out to you.
Mike Stud gave me a great compliment one time. I went up to his house to do his podcast, and he's a pretty famous musician, right? He goes, Dave Meltzer's way cooler than I thought he was.
Hey, it's the truth. It's the truth, man. I'm like, oh man, this is cool. And I had the opportunity to hang out with you a couple times, man. And for me, when it comes to podcasting, right, like the real secret is in the power of the connection. Like that's the secret. And I think I see so many people who have shows, they interview people, and that's the last time they ever talk. They never talk to them again. I think one of the things I've been able to utilize is take those connections, look for other opportunities, and continue to build with them. By far has been a huge key for me.
Yeah. That's a great example. And I love that because Meredith is for me a great example of that. I mentioned when we were talking with her that she had made some introductions for me, and it just kind of goes out from there. And some of these introductions have actually turned into some pretty good friends. And that continues to move. Now, Yeah, you haven't tasted my wife's chicken yet, but we'll see what we can do about that.
Tell Cynthia to invite me and Shawn over. We're ready.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
we're ready.
Well, now that I got power back here on the island, we can maybe do something about that.
Yeah, we got to do a battle of who has the best chicken, man. I'm telling you, I tell people all the time that was top 5.
That's amazing. So, one of the other things, Shawn, is the entrepreneurial spirit that you have. Most of the early podcasts are from entrepreneurs because those were the people that got involved in podcasting. You had to have an entrepreneurial spirit, a mindset in order to try this out. I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into the topic side of what you talk about, because I think there's 2 ways to go in a podcast. You can have, the star route where, your Chris Carter sports podcast and you live off of your legacy and your brand and your knowledge of sports, but they talk about everything. But the podcasts that do, the best today are what I call the Dr. Pimple Popper podcasts. The ones that hit one issue and go deep into it and address the 7.6 billion people that listen to podcasts, in total at some time. They don't necessarily download them, but they'll listen to a piece, a part of video, and even download them as well. But your podcast is about school's over, now what? And what I love about the topic is you think, well, this is very narrow. It's only for kids who are coming out of school, but it's not. Because, it's been a long time since I was in school, but I'm always in school. And we talked about this when we were together, right? School's not over, because when you think about now what, now who, now how, now is the Dow, and then applying my why, it's today is over, now what?
Yeah.
Today is over, now what? And continually to pursue that potential. What are some of the revelations that you've received from people giving you their perspective of being more interested than interesting, of knowing how to prioritize what to do next?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think what's helped me so much, and you said it right, is way deeper than just a narrow focus. And there's so many people from broad spectrums. I've had Grammy Award winners like Estelle on the show. I've had Emma Millette on the show. I've had New York Times bestselling authors like Seth Godin on the show. What I'm finding is the parallel is that everyone took a different path. But the cool part about it is they tell you how they got to where they were. Some of them never even went to college. Some of them dropped out. Some of them, got a degree in something that they're not even using. But what they're showing, my audience is that, hey, if you follow these steps, you follow these methods, you too can unlock a career like this. And when I ask the question, I ask everyone who's been on the show, if you were that person who just graduated, or perhaps you didn't at all, asking yourself the question of the podcast, what advice would you give? Right. And that has unlocked some of the most craziest answers from it to who needs the education, to you can do this with what you got right now, or go to school for the relationships and the connections that you can maybe leverage on in the future. I think that has been one of the biggest ahas for me, and the show just continues to grow, and we've had such a wide range of people on it.
Yeah, the Now What Academy, I mean, just kind of picking up that riff. Yeah, it's kind of like, okay, I'm here now what? Yeah, sort of a deal.
Yeah.
And that whole notion of I just keep moving. I wrote an article a number of years ago called "The Fruit Fly's Life." And a fruit fly will live for 24 hours, and that's why they're such great research subjects in laboratories. And they've got a lifespan of 24 hours. But I said, well, what if I approach my life from the perspective of being a fruit fly's life? Yeah, I got this 24-hour span, and that's all I got. Now what? The Now What Academy. How do I wake up in the morning, I got 24 hours. And that article actually preceded Groundhog Day, which is kind of interesting. But that whole notion of now what? And it's not necessary that I have a whole baggage truck filled with experience or anything else. The question, now what, compels something in itself. How did you land on that for yourself? I'm really curious about that, Shawn. What was that epiphany for you?
Man, that's a great question, man. So, like at 14, I was a different type of person, man. 14, I was in the clubs, I was partying, I
I
was
hope
with Rick
so.
Ross, Young Jeezy. I was a promoter at 14. I was throwing parties. My first party, I made $6,000. So I went off to college not for education. I went off to college to chase the bag, to get the money, and I did. I was a big time nightlife party promoter, and I saw so many people just going off. After 4 years, going back home. So I went corporate. I was promoted 6 times in 4 years, and I looked at my friends, and none of them knew what to do. They didn't know what they could do in life, what was next for them. And I figured out, okay, I'm not going to be the one that's going to change their life. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my charismatic ability to bring people together. I'm going to go get the people of the biggest names that you can imagine, and I'm going to get them to tell their stories, and we're going to figure this thing out. We're going to figure out, okay, now what do we do? And that's what birth Schools Over Now What.
All right. I love that. That's very cool. Yeah.
He
Gotta
he's
have you on
amazing.
my show as well.
Yeah, you gotta get on Blaine's show for sure. Now,
Yeah.
last question, real quick, and then we're gonna do takeaways of the day. Shawn, you partner still utilizing your podcast as a platform to introduce yourself and align, like this is aligning you with Blaine, and but you have to be able to walk the walk. And one of the things, you wrote this book, Podcast Secrets Revealed. One of the things, whether I'm coaching a speaker, a salesperson, an author, a podcaster, if I'm helping them, I can help them with everything except for two things. And these are the two things that I think are the differentiators of successful books, podcasts, and speakers. One is consistency. I can't teach it. I can motivate it and inspire it, but I can't teach it. It's something that has to come within. But it's an essential piece. If you're not consistent, it's never going to happen for you. And then the other one is actually have the talent. And I mean this in a very fair way, that I love football. I love it. It's just inherent in my innate, energetic, and genetic. And the minute I touched it, it was like finding, a soulmate from 200 lifetimes. It's the same way when I met Julie. It was like finding my football. But within my consistent, and I'm one of the most consistent people you'll ever meet. At 53, I'm learning that's a superpower. But I just didn't have the talent. My quantum potential is not that of Antonio Gates or Justin Herbert or Dan Fouts or Warren Moon, for example, who I know intimately. He's just far more talented than me. But the same holds true to authors and speakers and podcasters. And it's not to say that I should not pursue football because, I'm not and I don't have the talent. But I think managing the expectations of people in your book, a Podcast Secrets Revealed, just because Shawn gives you a secret, you still have to be consistent, and then you'll be limited by your potential. And do you address that in your book, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. A couple of things I do in the book is one, I talk about the power of not code switching. That's why people are attracted to me. Right, I could be in a room full of people with suits and joggers and some of the flyest tennis shoes you've seen. Right, like but I'm always me. I say what I say. I feel how I feel. I think that's the real hack, and people are drawn to it. You're either going to attract everybody that's for you, or you're going to repel everybody that's against you. And in this book, I talk about three things that are important before you even start a podcast. One, know yourself. Two, position yourself. And three, present yourself. And I break down that formula in each of those categories so you can truly stand out as a star, but walk in your uniqueness. And I think that's the difference for every line of podcasters.
What a great way to end. You have not disappointed again, my friend. You please come back. We got multiple shows. We got some bigger deals that, as you know, we're working on some TV stuff, and Office Hours has got a new sign deal yesterday that we'll be announcing as well. We got to look at the TV side of Office Hours with you, and of course all of your network. Thank you so much, Shawn, man. Anytime you want, you come back. SchoolsOverNowWhat.com, Schools Over Now What podcast, and the book Podcast Secrets Revealed. You got to check out my boy Shawn. Thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate you, man.
Buddy. Great having you on the show.
We're blessed. That's it. All right, Blaine, takeaways for the day.
Back it up. I'm gonna actually pick something up that Shawn did and then just kind of throw it as a big blanket over the whole show this morning here. Know yourself, position yourself, present yourself. And just kind of work from that, that framing. I love that idea. Yeah. Yeah, and also something you said, consistency and talent. Where consistency and talent meet, you got some, unbelievable opportunities. But where consistency doesn't meet talent, then you get to ask a question for the sake of what. And with you, I know football is a passion. I've known that since the first day I met you. I also know that you're short.
Yes.
And I've seen your hands next to Warren's. But it doesn't diffuse the passion. It doesn't diffuse the passion. What it does is it channels it. Yeah, you don't have to give up on the passion. Now the dream is going to change. The dream is going to, and this kind of goes back to some of Meredith's work around the whole idea of coaching. Yeah, organizations have got people in them. That's all organizations are. Everybody has something they're passionate about. And if a manager or a leader from the perspective of coaching can tap into, the whole idea of invite people to know themselves well. And then if they know themselves well, how do they position themselves so that they can actually do what needs to be done in their life so that they feel fulfilled? And then they present out to the world. So that whole idea, there's a full circle that kind of comes into play with this. You might end up doing 1,000 pull-ups as a consequence of this. There's no telling where it ends. And this is part of my answer to Justin on this. Once the seed's planted, you just, what do you do? Well, you do nothing. Well, it doesn't mean you do no things.
Yeah.
But you don't have to push the river. The river is going to move. And all you got to do is know yourself well enough to find a way to keep in the seam of the current and then move from there. So I loved it. This was a good show today. Really good show today.
Always a good show. Sometimes it's a great show. Even I think we're tempting that today. My takeaway is do the Dow now.
Do the Dow now.
Apply your why. You already have your why. So let's use football as an example. Although I am short with small hands and have, limitations in my talent, it didn't mean I can't apply my why, my love for football to my personal life, to my business, to philanthropy. So I do a ton around football events to raise money, just the same as Justin applies his why with pull-ups to get water to Tanzania. People don't understand that you are already the Dow. You are nothing to no thing to nothing is our journey. And to do the Dow now, to know what that's like, to instead of trying to go get things, to be a professional football player, but instead to apply football to everything you do, to know that I'm happy, healthy, wealthy, and worthy. I don't have to go get it. I have to figure out what I'm doing to interfere with it by applying my why, my skills, my knowledge, and my desire. And I think through Meredith Bell and her support system that she creates through a collective consciousness of peer-to-peer mentoring, of course, Justin, as we mentioned, and finally Shawn, all of them elevate others to elevate themselves. They do the Dow now. Something I've learned from learn.blainebartlett.com/LMM, the master himself, the mindset mastermind. If you haven't done it, if you want to move possibilities to profit, I call it the possibilities, the probability to profit. That's what I've learned from Blaine. If you think about what you want, it's a possibility. Blaine will inspire you to make it a probability, but I'll also give you the discipline, the strategy, and the awareness to make it a profitability. I appreciate you, my friend. Please send my love to the extraordinary chicken chef herself, Cynthia Kersey, founder of Unstoppable Foundation, something that's near to dear as well. Cynthia is near to dear to my heart, but to Blaine and I especially. Thank you so much for joining me. We'll see you next week, my dear friend.
Love it, buddy. You have a great week.
Thank you for waking up early. Go Gorgon.
Oh, absolutely.
Go
always.
Ducks. Go Ducks.
Go Ducks. Go Ducks.
All right. Here we are. I feel like the monster at the end of the book. If you haven't read The Monster at the End of the Book, it's one of my favorite Sesame Street books that have ever existed. It's about doing the Dow now. You are the monster at the end of your book. So stop trying to block or brick or nail the pages shut. Don't be afraid of the next page. It's just you, lovable, cuddly Grover, I promise. Anyway, we're always enjoying ourselves here. This is Office Hours with David Meltzer. Remember, most importantly, be kind to your future self and do good deeds. We'll see you.